want to take this opportunity really to say something about you. The moment I met you a few years ago, I was only a grad student learning or studying to become a professional interpreter. But the moment I saw you, I realized, oh, this is why Koreans love him. You're so warm, you're down to earth, you have that sense of humor, and you're the very few people who still have that beautiful sense of innocence within you, despite being so successful. And so thank you so much for being here on our show. It means so much, and it was such a special time, 1 hour with you. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so that was world famous tenor Paul Putz joining us on Creme de la Creme today. We'll wrap up the show right there. Please join us again tomorrow for more culture to crunch on. Here is our last song, 그댈 위한 노래, A Song for You by Kami. Bye-bye. Keep crunching.
추운 겨울이 다 지나가고 봄이 올 때까지
이 논슬립 양말의 제일 큰 특징이 땀 흡수가 잘 되고 안 미끄러진다는 거니까 우리가 지금 물을 준비했단 말이에요. 타쿠마가 덜 밀리면 이게 재미가 없으니까 빠르게 와서 쫙 서봐요. 우와! 안 가지?
너무 안 가.
안 가.
진짜 안 가.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the critical moment that decides the match. Do socks really make a difference in performance? One wrong move here and it's game over. And just as I say that, he breaks through. And what a header! Oh, look at his footwork. No slipping at all. Thanks to the double-layer non-slip socks, he locks the feet perfectly to the ground. The grip of the polyurethane pads is incredible. It reduces muscle strain while maintaining full rebound power. These aren't just socks. This is performance-engineered tech. Introducing WeFoot non-slip technology.
drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% cent rate in April. Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million with this locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
Korean officials have met with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington as both sides look to reach a breakthrough on a trade deal. The presidential chief of staff for policy said the meeting produced some progress, but said nothing is over until it's truly over. South Korea's central bank has decided to keep its interest rate steady amid soaring housing costs and the weakening Korean won against the dollar. A day after the South Korean military said it detected missile launches from North Korea, the regime this morning claimed it has tested a new weapon system, saying 2 hypersonic projectiles successfully hit their intended targets. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with trade talks between South Korea and the United States. The two sides appear to be nearing the final stages of negotiations over a multi-billion-dollar trade and investment deal. But a few sticking points remain. Officials say talks in Washington this week produced some progress as both sides look to reach a breakthrough. Our Muniran starts us off.
South Korea's presidential chief of staff for policy Kim Jong-un and industry minister Kim Jong-un met with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington for about 2 hours on Wednesday for the second round of in-person negotiations in less than a week. The discussions focused on the $350 billion investment package, a key part of the broader trade framework between the two countries. After the meeting, Policy Chief Kim said some progress was made, but stressed that negotiations are still ongoing.
There has been some progress. If we can meet more frequently before APEC, both sides will better understand each other's positions. But as always, in negotiations, nothing is over until it's truly over.
The talks are believed to have centered on the cash ratio and funding duration of the investment plan. The policy chief said that any agreement must remain within what South Korea can afford financially, without causing instability in the foreign exchange market, while the industry minister said that meeting face-to-face was crucial to resolving the few remaining issues.
There are still pending issues. While we've discussed them online, we thought meeting in person would be far more effective, so we decided to come.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chol, who has been negotiating with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, told Bloomberg TV that the focus is on structuring the $350 billion investment rather than on establishing a currency swap. He added that Seoul is working towards a balanced mix of direct investment, loans and guarantees, noting that a full upfront payment could shock the Korean foreign exchange market. Koo also emphasized that resolving the tariff gap, currently 25% for Korean vehicles versus 15% for Japanese ones, would help reduce uncertainty and stabilize the Korean won. With the South Korea-US summit expected to take place during the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju at the end of the month, Wednesday's talks likely mark the final push as both sides work to seal a deal. 문혜련, Arirang News.
South Korea's central bank has left the country's key interest rate unchanged at 2.5% for the third consecutive time, amid soaring housing prices and the weakening Korean currency against the U.S. dollar. Now, Thursday's decision comes after the Bank of Korea Governor Lee Chang-yong earlier said during a parliamentary audit earlier this week that the central bank intends to prevent additional liquidity from overheating the property market. The interest rate gap between South Korea and the United States remains in the 1.5 to 1.75 percentage point range. In shifting gears, President Lee Jae-myung says a meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump in time for next week's APEC meeting would be a good thing. In an interview with CNN ahead of the upcoming APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju, Lee says such a meeting would be the first step in resolving many issues, though he acknowledged the chances of it happening next week were slim. On the complicated trade talks with the United States, the South Korean leader said he believes a rational agreement will be reached, adding that finalizing the deal would take time. North Korea this morning claimed it has successfully tested 2 hypersonic projectiles, calling them a part of a new and important weapons system, after the South Korean military said it detected 2 ballistic missiles launched by the regime the day before. Both the United States and the European Union slammed the latest missile test, calling it unlawful. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
North Korea announced Thursday that it successfully test-fired 2 hypersonic projectiles, describing them as part of a new and important weapons system. According to the Korean Central News Agency, the 2 projectiles were launched the day before from Yeokpo District in Pyongyang toward the northeast and hit their intended target on the Gwaesang Peak tableland in Arirang County, North Hamgyong Province. The KCNA said the test was part of the country's broader defense capability development program, designed to strengthen the sustainability and effectiveness of what Pyongyang calls its strategic deterrence against potential enemies. While top military officials were at the test site to observe, the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un, was not. This marks the first ballistic missile test by North Korea in 167 days since the regime fired multiple short-range missiles, including the Hwasong-11 on May 8th. It also comes just days before the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Gyeongju, where leaders from South Korea, the United States, and China are expected to discuss the North's growing missile threats. In response, the United States condemned the launches, calling them unlawful and destabilizing. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Defense said Washington is closely consulting with South Korea, Japan, and regional allies following the test, reaffirming America's ironclad security commitment to its partners in Northeast Asia. The spokesperson added that the U.S. strongly urges Pyongyang to refrain from further provocations. In Europe, EU Foreign Affairs spokesperson Anita Hipper also condemned the missile tests on social media, calling them a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. She stated that North Korea must cease all unlawful actions that threaten peace and security, return to diplomacy, and fulfill its international obligations. The latest test underscores heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula as Pyongyang seeks to demonstrate its military capabilities ahead of key international discussions. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And North Korea has stolen billions of dollars of virtual assets and laundered it in several countries. Now, that's according to the latest report by the Multilateral Sanctions Monitoring Team on Wednesday. From early 2024 to September this year, Pyongyang stole $2.8 billion of virtual assets, including over $1.6 billion this year alone. The regime has been using China's financial systems, including UnionPay credit cards and banks, along with an exchange platform run by the Huion Group, headquartered in Cambodia. The report added that IT workers engaged in illicit crypto activities were based in at least 8 countries, including China, Russia, and Cambodia. And in other news, U.S. President Donald Trump has imposed the first Ukraine-related sanctions on Russia since the start of his second term, marking a sharp policy shift. The sanctions announced on Wednesday target Russia's 2 largest oil giants, Lukoil and Rosneft, as frustration grows over the ongoing war in Ukraine. The U.S. Treasury Department said it's prepared to take further action and urged Moscow to agree to an immediate ceasefire. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the companies directly fund what he called the Kremlin's war machine, as he encouraged U.S. allies to follow suit. Meanwhile, Trump also said Wednesday that he has canceled a planned summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin, citing a lack of progress in diplomatic talks and saying the timing didn't feel right. Trump expressed frustration over what he described as stalled negotiations, saying that while his conversations with Putin are always good, they fail to produce results. Meanwhile, Seoul is currently hosting its annual Semiconductor exhibition, bringing together more than 200 global semiconductor manufacturing and equipment manufacturers, while offering a comprehensive look at the latest chip technologies. Our Moon Ji-young was there.
In the midst of a paradigm shift driven by AI, the future competitiveness of the semiconductor ecosystem is becoming increasingly crucial. Against this backdrop, marking its 27th anniversary, the Semiconductor exhibition commenced in Seoul on Wednesday, showcasing the entire spectrum of the semiconductor industry's supply chain. In the AI era, with semiconductor technology at the core, this year's event highlights a seamless integration of Korea's semiconductor ecosystem, design, manufacturing, and post-processing. Samsung Electronics unveiled a physical HBM4, a 6th-generation high-bandwidth memory chip. The company has not only completed development of its 12-layer HBM4, but is also actively accelerating preparations for mass production. Furthermore, Samsung showcased its broad portfolio, ranging from the 7th-generation GDDR7 graphics DRAM, currently supplied in large volumes to NVIDIA, to advanced system semiconductors and foundry services. Meanwhile, another industry leader, SK hynix, prominently positioned its HBM4 exhibition at the booth center. Notably, the company had already supplied HBM4 samples to key customers such as NVIDIA as early as March, outpacing its competitors. It also introduced innovative memory module solutions specifically optimized for data centers and AI servers, alongside advanced storage solutions tailored for AI data centers and cloud infrastructure. Beyond these industry giants, Family's firms showcase their latest innovations, including intellectual property technology, logic processing units, and vehicle-to-infrastructure solutions. Furthermore, domestic materials, parts, and equipment companies demonstrated their advanced manufacturing technologies, underpinning the entire semiconductor production process. Running through this Friday, the show brings together 280 global semiconductor manufacturing and equipment companies exhibiting across 700 booths and is expected to attract more than 60,000 industry professionals. 문지영, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In Washington on Wednesday, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed that the U.S. military carried out an airstrike on Tuesday night in the eastern Pacific Ocean, destroying a suspected drug-carrying vessel and killing 2 people. It is the 8th U.S. strike against alleged cartel boats since operations began last month and is the first strike outside the Caribbean. A total of 34 people have been killed by the airstrikes. The U.S. Defense Secretary compared the airstrikes to the post-9/11 war on terrorism, saying, quote, "These cartels are waging war on our border and our people. There will be no refuge or forgiveness." The Trump administration claims the U.S. is in an armed conflict with drug cartels, designating them unlawful combatants under the same legal authority used in the war on terror. Some members of Congress are now demanding oversight, questioning the legality and the transparency of the airstrikes. In New York on Tuesday, an immigration enforcement sweep in Manhattan's Chinatown spiraled into chaos when a crowd of residents surrounded federal agents, blocking vehicles and clashing with officers during rush hour. The confrontation began around 4 p.m. as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Border Patrol, and other federal agents moved along Canal Street, detaining vendors accused of selling counterfeit goods. A news reporter witnessed officers arresting at least one vendor selling phone cases before protesters gathered, chanting, quote, "ICE out of New York." According to the Department of Homeland Security, at least one person was arrested for assaulting an officer during the operation. New York City officials said Mayor Eric Adams had no prior knowledge of the sweep, condemning it as a misuse of law enforcement resources. In western Uganda early Wednesday, at least 46 people were killed when 2 buses and 2 other vehicles collided on the highway between Kampala and Gulu near the town of Kirandongo. The crash happened just after midnight Tuesday local time when both buses tried to overtake a truck and a car and slammed head-on to each other. A Ugandan Red Cross spokesperson described the scenes of, quote, bleeding victims and broken limbs, calling it one of the country's most devastating road accidents. Authorities say reckless overtaking and speeding remain the leading causes of crashes on Uganda's narrow highways. Investigators are continuing to examine the cause of the crash. Researchers in the U.S. have found that some COVID-19 vaccines may help cancer patients live longer. The researchers at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston and the University of Florida found that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines may help some cancer patients by strengthening their immune response to treatment. The study, published on Wednesday in the journal Nature, analyzed nearly 1,000 patients with advanced lung and skin cancers taking checkpoint inhibitor drugs. Those who received an mRNA vaccine within 100 days of starting therapy had significantly higher survival rates, with lung cancer patient 3-year survival rates nearly doubling. Scientists say the mRNA molecule that powers the vaccines act like a siren, activating immune cells throughout the body. The findings are preliminary, but researchers are planning larger trials to test pairing mRNA vaccines with cancer immunotherapy. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
The sudden early winter chill has certainly made it feel like the season has changed overnight. While we had one last cool start this morning, relief is on the way. Temperatures will jump by over 10 degrees later today, bringing back that mild seasonal autumn weather we have been missing. Meanwhile, the East Coast remains wet with rain expected throughout the day. East of Gangwon-do will see 20 to 60 millimeters. The east coast of Gyeongsang-Bukdo province will see 5 to 40 millimeters. But again, this afternoon, the warm-up is ahead with highs going 1 to 5 degrees higher. Seoul topping out at 19 degrees, Gwangju, Jeju both at 22 degrees. And from tomorrow, we'll finally recover back to the seasonal average with morning temperatures returning to around 10 degrees. The forecast for the rest of the week remains near average, but by early next week, morning temperatures will plunge back down to early winter-like conditions.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.
Lair the Peak.
비행기처럼
높이 세계 속으로
날아라. 하늘도
내 꿈도